Hello, I'm Michael Coyne, and I'm a photographer. This book is called Village, Hearing the Grass Grow, and it's about rural life around the world today because rural life is changing. Most people used to live in the countryside. In fact, China's a very good example. When I started this book, 80% of the population of China lived in the countryside. Now 70% live in the city. The United Nations said at one stage that by the middle of this century, most people will be living in the city. Everything has changed. So what happens with that is you lose culture, you lose language, you lose indigenous people, you lose tribes. Everything changes. Then you've got the problems of the city, with the countryside, because what happens is that global warming, globalization, all of those things change what's happening there. So the people can't earn a living, so they have to leave. I went to villages in China where the only people in the village were babies and grandparents because everybody had left to go in the economic zones and earn money. The photograph of the man with the rooster that's on the cover was done in Italy. And I was in Italy for a couple of weeks in a little village called Satiano. And a family was helping us and they took us up to Grandpa's farm. So we were up on the farm and we said to Grandpa, can I take pictures of you? And he said, certainly you can take pictures of me. Can I put my chicken in the picture? I said, yes. So he picked up his chicken, walked over to this lovely spot, and I started taking pictures. And he started to perform an aria with the chicken. And the chicken must be used to it. It didn't move at all. But what I love, a little bit of wind lift the farmer's hair up, if you notice, which is exactly the same as the cockerel. It was just one of those magic moments. In photography, you work and work and work, and suddenly something happens and all the elements come together and you get that photograph. That was one of those instances. And to put it on the cover, it had so much energy and vitality and hope that we felt that that was summed up the sort of book that I wanted to do. I've done 14 books, which included 3 cookbooks. So people always see me as working in this genre that I do, documentary journalism. But I have to earn a living too. So I've done cookbooks. I also was a fashion photographer while I'm going to some of these revolutions. So I'm in New York because I have a New York agent who manages all my work. And I'm dropped into New York on a fashion shoot. And my agency said, we didn't expect you here. What are you doing? I'm doing a fashion shoot. Don't be silly. Tell us what you're doing here. So yes, I've done cookbooks and I've done fashion. I enjoy it. It's quite different. It's quite separate from my other work. And it's safer. I've been working on it for over 20 years. It takes, first of all, the research takes a long time. Getting to places takes a long time. For instance, we were in Siberia. Getting permission to get up into Siberia with the reindeer people is very difficult. We couldn't go on our own. We had to go in a tiny group, and that makes it difficult. But working with the reindeer people in Siberia, working in a place where the indigenous people are, you don't want to disturb them. You don't want to change on what's going on. You don't want to interfere because then you're seeing something that's not the reality of what's happening. And as a documentary photographer, you want to document it as it is. So you don't want to change it. You want to watch, observe, and capture, which is a definition of documentary. Watch, observe, and capture. Do not interfere. I started off photographing in China, and I saw all sorts of things happening in the countryside. I then went to a lot of other countrysides doing assignments, plus my in-laws had a sheep property in central Victoria. So I'd come back from something awful somewhere in the Middle East or wherever else and come back to the farm and we'd sit out on the veranda, drink some red wine because they're in a red wine area and just be very peaceful there. And they would talk about the fact you go everywhere, but you don't care about the countryside. You never talk, nobody talks about the rural areas. So with a combination of those things and what the United Nations was saying with my research, I thought this is really fascinating. And then when I went to China and I saw what was happening in China, I thought this is the perfect example. And then the more I did it, the more I saw what was happening. For instance, I was in Indonesia and I saw how the only way that people in the village in Flores, where I went, could treat the people with mental issues or Alzheimer's was to lock them up or chain them up or lock them in a room. And it looks cruel from the outside, but they have no money and no other way of looking after their people. But that's the best thing they can do. So I start to see all these things that when you start going into the countryside, it's quite different from where the tourists go into the city and think that that is the country. That is not the country at all. It's quite different out there. As a young man, I worked for publications in Australia. And while I was here, I went out and shot my own assignments and sent them to an agency in London. I once went out to photograph a drought. It was a pretty nasty drought, so I did it in Victoria and New South Wales. When I photographed the drought, I sent all the images to London to a photo agency, and they liked the images so much they appeared in National Geographic, Life magazine, and many European magazines. From that moment, I started to get assignments. Photography is about being self-motivated. It's about going out and do it yourself. It's not about equipment. It's about seeing what happens around you. And look, I go to places where others go and they say, there's nothing here to photograph. You've got to look. You've got to see. You've got to stop and watch. You've got to watch what the light does, what the content is, what are you trying to say, all of those things. And once you start working that out, you can do it. Because I can do it on an iPhone. It doesn't matter what camera I use. It's about seeing what's happening in front of me. First of all, I try to find contacts in the area where I'm going to work. So somebody that knows that area and is from that area. If they're not from that area, someone who will introduce me to someone in that area. And then I stay there and I go to the pubs, I go to the cafes, I get myself involved in the village so that people know who I am. Often I'm not taking pictures. What I'm doing is connecting with them. Now, I can speak a few words in different languages, but no conversations, because I never spend long enough in a country to learn the language. But I can make myself understood. I can relate to people. I can garnish them into doing things. And one of the things I've always found is respect them. Respect them and they'll respect you. And it's the secret of how I work. And I'm always talking to people, even if it's through a guide or an interpreter, I'm always chatting. And what I do is put them in the spotlight, not me. What I say is, do you have children? How long? Are you a grandparent? Are you, do you grow vegetables? Do they grow well? All the things that are their lives. So I'm getting to understand them, but I make them feel as if they are centre of, because they are. I've come to document them. And I want to have a relationship with them. That's how I get the pictures. That's how I get so close to them. As you can see in the book, there's pictures that are quite intimate, but it's working at getting close to these people so they trust me, so they know that what I say I do, I will, and I have. I have not broken the trust of anybody in the book. And I send pictures back to people. Often, if they're very poor, I did a wedding in East Timor, the only couple that's ever been photographed for their wedding. And I gave them all the pictures, the family, the wedding couple, the two of them, the portrait, everything for them. Because I don't want to go and take from people. I want this to be an experience for both of us and share. I went to all the continents except the Antarctic, because there's nobody living there except scientists, etc. But I went everywhere, up and down South America, all across Europe, up and down Africa. I worked up the north in Ethiopia, down in Malawi, down South Central, right across Europe, and then back and forward across Asia, as many places as I could go there as well. So going to as many places as I could that will give a representation of what's going on today, both Indigenous people and others, because I think we have to look at all the different things that's going on. What I'm trying to do is show it from all aspects. Like I had a chief of a clan in Papua New Guinea, and he sang to me the death of his language, the last man alive that speaks his language, because their clan is dissipating. They go into the city, the towns, they can't stay there and earn a living anymore. So I go as far as I can with as many places as I can and spend the time with the people, whatever it is. I went dancing with the gauchos in the Pampas. It's many things. I was chased by geese in Ireland. I did the jig for them at the, like all of those things. I get involved. I get involved in what's going on. The Australian place, which was called Numurkah, was really interesting. I spent months there because it was so fascinating for me. It got to a point where if an event was happening, and it could be a 4-year-old's birthday party, it wouldn't start till I arrived. And even if I was back in Melbourne, I had to get in my car and go so they could have the event. It was that close. And from that, I managed to get some fabulous pictures. I went on a Hen's Day, the only male on a Hen's Day, which shook me. I've been on bucks turns, but it's on another level. To the point where I had such an extraordinary collection, we decided to make a book of it. So we made an extra book just of Numurkah, the village. Now, I went to China many, many times because I was based in Asia for a long time. I went back just before I finished my book to these villages, and they changed. What had happened was the people had come back from the economic zone and brought ideas with them. And what they brought, one village became a button village. They were manufacturing buttons. Another village was taking jeans, put them on the streets. Everybody walked over them, trucks ran over them, and they're selling them in New York and London for $250 or more because they are used jeans. I thought that was extremely good out of the box. There have been a lot of obstacles that happened. For instance, when I went to Fukushima to document the nuclear disaster, the effects of it. So I go there and there are no villages in that area. They've been wiped out. And I'm traveling with a guide, and she has special permission to go right in very close. Close enough that our Geiger counter started going very quickly. So I said to her, "Is this safe? Are we too close? Are we all right?" She said, "No, it's not safe, but you're so old, it doesn't matter." Make sure that there's somebody that's looking after me that knows what's happened. Like, for instance, in the Philippines, I traveled with my guards who made sure I was safe while I was there, So, yes, you have to be careful about what you're doing. You just can't step out into places not knowing what it's like. 140 pictures going in the book. So what we did was, what pictures tell the story that you want to say? What do you want to say? What does it mean? What is it about? So once you start doing that, and then the next thing you do is, the 49 countries I want to represent from each of those countries. So you start, I did a lot of weddings and funerals and all that sort of thing. So then you start, which are the better ones? Which are the stronger images? Which tell you what's going on there? Which ones do we have too many from that country, too few from that? So it starts to almost edit itself in the way that happens. Of course, there's images I'd love to have put in the book that we didn't put in the book, but there'll always be a second one. So yes, it was difficult. Yes, we had to leave things out, but we feel that we said what I wanted to say. We talked about the issues and the joys of being in the countryside. This is not something downhearted. It's about, look at the fantastic things that happen. I went to so many parties and balls and wonderful events that you've just such energy that comes out of there. Because remember, it's a community that they're living in. So everybody knows each other. Everybody goes to the same parties. Everybody's involved. So once you start knowing people, you then become involved in all the different things that go on. Photographic books, you need high quality, otherwise they don't work. The pictures will not look strong enough. They look either dirty or not bright enough in colour. Mine's in black and white, so I needed rich blacks, clean whites. I had a lot of problem finding somebody that could do that. I tried overseas. It didn't work. I didn't like what they wanted to do with the book or how they were doing it. I finally settled, after conversations with various printers and publishers and designers, I finally settled on somebody I was very happy with, and the printer did an excellent job. It could have been printed anywhere in the world, and I think the quality that they received from it is marvellous. I'm very happy with it. I'm reading 3 books. Robert Fiske's Civilization in the Middle East. I'm reading Len Deighton's Sky, what is it? Hook and Sinker. Sinker I'm reading at the moment. And I'm reading Rupert Murdoch's life story. Because I travel so much, I've always got a couple of books in the bag. So I might start a book and think I'll take that one with me and leave those behind. I've got one next to my bed and I've got one in my office. So I love reading. I'm reading constantly. I read everything. So on all levels. I mean, when I did my PhD, I had to read so much in areas of philosophy that I've never worked in, because part of my PhD was about my work with the Jesuits. So I had to know Roman Catholic philosophy and ideals. And so I read everything. I'm fascinated by everything. Because I travel so much, again, I'm interested in what people do. I'm interested in what their culture's about. I'm interested in how it functions. So to know that, you have to read a lot. Before going to a country, you've got to research. You've got to know what it's about. You have to know their customs. You have to know what they're doing there, what it's about. If you don't know, how are you going to photograph anything? I don't think people realise that the amount of effort that goes into the research before you go and shoot anything, because how do you do, whether I'm shooting video or stills or being involved in anything, if you don't do the research, how are you going to do it? You can't do it. There is no next. It's a continuation of this project, because I went to 49 countries for this book. So I want to keep going. There's over 190 countries. So I'm going to, and I have so many photographs. The project is so big. I want to continue because I want to keep gathering as much material as I can to show what is happening. And it keeps changing. What's happening when I started 23 years ago is not the same as what's happening today. We've lost more tribes and languages and animals and creatures. As you see, I have a picture in the book of snakes, which are now we're losing a lot of those species. So I'm doing that as well. So all of these things are disappearing. So I'm trying to capture these things before they go. I've just come back from another shoot in Eastern Europe. I was up on the Ukraine border and shooting pictures there because of the issues that are going on around there. And I was in Romania, and I was in Hungary. So I'm continuing to do this in other places I haven't, as their places change. Because each country has a different way of trying to deal with this issue. Because you can't let the cities keep getting bigger and bigger, as we know. They'll just burst. We've got to look at what is going on and how to organise all of this movement of population. This is great. It's enjoyable. Thank you for making it enjoyable. I've forgotten.